Alright, welcome back to Beginning Algebra. We are doing lesson 11, just solving equations with addition and subtraction. We'll go ahead and go for it. Let's go with number 1. Say we have 2x plus 2 equals 10. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to isolate x. So we have to find out what x equals. And it could be any value, we don't know what it is, that's what we're trying to solve for. So the best way I like to do this is isolate all the variables that don't have x in it first. So all the constants, we gotta move them all onto one side, and then we can deal with the ones that have x in it. So the best way is to move the 2 over. Because it's being added, you have to subtract it from both sides of the equation. So subtract it from one side, from the left to the right, so you get -2 on both sides. So I like to write it in horizontal fashion. So we can write as -2 on both sides. So 2 minus 2, that would give you 0. You bring down your 2x equals, and then just do the 10 minus 2, which would be 8. Then you can drop the 0 and just do your 2x equals 8. Now we have the 2x equals 8, so we have to isolate the x by moving the 2 over. The way to do that is we have 2x being multiplied by x, so we have to do the opposite. So we have to divide by 2. So I can use 1/2, or you can actually use divide by 2, however you want to write it. This way I can see what I'm doing. So 1/2 on both sides. So you get 2x over 2 equals 8x, or 8 divided by 2. We know that 2 over 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is just simply 4. So x is equal to 4. So just a reminder, remember to do PEMDAS. Don't forget, when you're doing your operations, make sure you have them in the right order. So to plug it back in, let's plug it back into the equation. We got 2x plus 2 equals 10, so we'll plug the x in where it should be, which would be 4. So 2 times 4 plus 2 equals 10. So go ahead, let's do our PEMDAS. 2 times 4 is 8. So bring down the 8 plus 2, which would be 10. So 10 equals 10 when you got the right answer. So x, it does equal 4. Let's do number 2. -3x plus 5 equals 25. Same problem, just different numbers. We got to isolate the x. Let's get rid of the constants first. Move them all onto one side and isolate. So we have 5. So we have to move the positive 5 over, so we have to subtract it. -5 on both sides. So 5 minus 5 is 0. 25 minus 5 is 20. Bring everything down, so you get -3x plus 0 equals 20. Then you can bring down it again, -3, because we can drop the 0. -3x equals 20. And now we have to deal with this -3. Since it's being multiplied by the x, we have to divide the -3 out on both sides. So we have -1/3 multiplied by both sides, which would give you -3x over -3, which would be equal to 20 over -3. So we know -3 and -3 is just 1. So you have x equals to whatever 20 divided by -3 would be. So let's do that. 20 divided by 3. So we got to find how many 3's go into 20. So 3 times 6 is 18. That would probably be the best one. So we have 3 times 6, 18. So 6 would be on top. And we get a remainder of 2. So to do this, you have a remainder of 2. And you just divide it by whatever your main bottom fraction is, which would be 3. So it would be 2/3. So it would be 6 and 2/3. So your x would be 6 and 2/3. You could also just do a decimal place if you wanted to. So let's plug the x back into the equation. So we can say that the 6 and 2/3, you can say that this is being added together. So 6 plus the 2/3, what would that be? Well, we got to find a common denominator. Best way to do that is multiply the 6 by 3 by 3. And 6 times 3 is 18, and you're still left with the 3 on the bottom. 18 plus 2, which would be 20. So you get 20/3. And then you're going to multiply this by the -3 plus the 5 equals to 25. So now this is being multiplied. So you can rewrite the fraction like this. -3 times 20 all over 3. And we know that the -3 and the 3 will give us a -1. Let's see. Oh, something is not right. I must have missed something. It was a negative. The x actually should be negative. If you look back at our problem, we should have actually, because the 20 over the -3 should give us a negative. See? This is why we do a check for the answer. So everything should be negative for the x. So we should have -3 times the -20 all over 3. So you can rewrite this as -3 times 20 over the -3. So we know that the 3 and the 3 cancel to give you 1. So you're left with the 20 plus 5 equals 25. So the 20 plus 5 would just give you 25. So you know that 25 equals 25. So now you know that your x actually works because we forgot the negative. So let's not forget that. So now we find the proper x. Number 3. 30 minus x equals 3. Alright, let's just add the 2x in front. Let's do this. So 2x minus x plus 30. We'll write this so it's a little more sense when we do it. So we know that 2x minus x just gives you x. Because you have 2 x's minus 1 x, so it just gives you 1 positive x. So x plus 30 equals 3. So we have to isolate the x by moving the 30 over. We do that by subtracting because it's a positive. So subtract both sides with 30. Go ahead. 30 minus 30 is 0. 3 minus 30, which would give you a negative number because the 30 is bigger. So you get the negative 27. So x equals negative 27. Go ahead and check. Plug the x values into the original equation. 2 times negative 27 plus 30 minus negative 27 equals 3. So we know 27 times 2, which would be 54. So we have negative 54 plus 30, and then we have a negative times a negative number, which would give you just a positive number. So you can just add those together. So the 50 minus the 30, which would give you negative 24. What I did here was 54 minus 30. I just moved the negative down to the other one just to show you that we can subtract. Don't forget to add the negative back into the negative 24 because negative 54 was bigger, so we had to leave the negative in. So we get negative 24 plus the 27 equals 3. And when we subtract the 27 from the 24, we get left over 3. So 3 equals 3. Let's do number 4. Let's do 3x plus 5x equals 2x plus 5. Let's move all the x's onto one side. We're simply doing this by adding 2x on each side, which would give us 3x plus 5x plus 2x. And the 2x minus the 2x would just give you 0 with the leftover 5. Drop the 0, bring down all the things. Let's add 5x plus 2x, 5, 6, 7, and then we have the 3, which would give us 10. So we got 10x equals 5. Now we can isolate the x. We have the 10 here being multiplied, so we have to divide both sides by 10. Go ahead and do that. 10 over x, 10x divided by 10, and 5 divided by 10. We know 10 divided by 10 is 1, so we get x equals 5 over 10, which would be our answer. So let's plug this 5 over 10 into our original equation. But don't forget to do a reduction. A reduction of this is a simple half, 1/2, because we know if you split this fraction, we can get 1/2 out of it. So let's plug 1/2 into the equation. So 3 times 1/2 plus 5 times 1/2 equals negative 2 times 1/2 plus 5. Don't forget to use the PEMDAS. Let's rewrite these 3 and 1/2. Let's write it the 3 and half. And the 5 and 1/2 as 3 halves. And the negative 2 and 1/2, let's write it negative 2 and half. So we know that the negative 2 and 2 just gives you a negative 1. Bring down the 5. We know that 3 plus 5 is 8, and since they have a common denominator, we can just bring the 2. And we know that 8 divided by 2 is 4, and the negative 1 plus 5 would just give you a positive 4. So 4 equals 4, so we got the right x, 1/2. Number 5, let's do a little more complicated one. 1/5 x plus 2/5 equals 5 plus 6/5 x, all being multiplied by 5. So let's distribute the 5 first. So 5 times the 1/5, you can just say 5 over 5 times the x. Plus 5 times the 2/5, well, let's write it as 2 times 5 over 5. The top 5 and the bottom 5, that would just equal 1, so you're left with 2. And 5 times 5 is 25. And now we can just combine the 5 and the 6 on top with the 5 on the bottom. Combining the 5 times 6/5 as into one fraction makes it easier to see. So we can cross off the 5 and the 5, that gives us 1. So rewriting all this, we get 5 divided by 5, that's 1, so you get x, plus 5 divided by 5, that's 1, so you get 2, equals 25, plus the 5 and 5, that's just 1, so you're left with 6x. So let's bring the 6x over. To do that, we just subtract 6x from both sides. And when you do that, you get negative 5x, bring down the 2, bring down the 25. So you get negative 5x plus 2 equals 25. Let's isolate the x even further. Let's bring the 2 over. To do that, we subtract 2 on both sides. The 2 minus 2, that's 0. Negative 5, let's not forget the x. And 25 minus 2, that's just 23. So we just have negative 5x divided or equals to 23. Let's isolate the 5. Since it's negative 5 being multiplied, we have to divide 5 on both sides. Negative 5 on both sides. Let's do that. So negative 5 and 5, that would just simply give you negative 5x over negative 5 and equal to 23 divided by negative 5. So let's take care of this. Negative 5 over 5, that gives you 1x, or just x. And that x equals 23 divided by a negative 5. And that would just be the answer. So x is equal to, you could say, negative 23 divided by 5. Since we don't have a whole lot of time, we will not check this one. It will take a while to do. So let's do another one. Let's do number 6. 5 plus x equals 5 plus x. Let's see if this is true. So let's isolate x. Let's bring one of the x's over. So to do that, we subtract 1x from one side. And we get 0 for both of these x's. And bring down the 5 on either side. And what do you get? You get 5 equals 5. So, this is one thing you have to watch out for. Because 5 equals 5, but you don't have x equals. That means there's an infinite amount of solutions to this problem. So you always make sure that you end up with x equals some number. If you end up with the same value or a different value on the other sides, you know that either the equation is infinite solutions or you have no solution. So let's do one with no solution. So let's do 5 plus x equals x plus 10. Let's bring the x over, one of the x's over, so we have to subtract x on both sides. When you do that, they cancel out. You bring down the 5 and the 10, so you're left with 5 equals 10. That doesn't make any sense. So this is just telling you that this statement is false. That means there's no solutions. Let's not get these confused though, however. The 5 equals 5 just means the statement is true, but the solutions are infinite. The 5 equals 10, that just means the statement is false and there's no solution. This concludes lesson 11, solving equations with addition and subtraction. Thank you for watching. Please rate and subscribe. Have a nice day.